This week on the Sports Initiative podcast, I sit down with Reading Youth Development Phase coach, Rhys Denton. He discusses some of his techniques in gaining relationships with players, the work he does with football camps outside of academy football, and some of the benefits he has seen for academy players that attend these camps, as well as his recent award from Football Blacklist and how equality in the coaching ranks can be progressed. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, please make sure you share it with friends and family. I hope you enjoy. Perfect. So, Rhys, I know we caught up briefly off air there, but all well and looking forward to Christmas.
Yeah, no, as you can see, obviously I've got the tree up, so we're all looking forward to it. Definitely.
Perfect. So, for people that maybe haven't come across your work previously or don't know a lot about you, could you just give us a whistle-stop tour, I guess, of what you're doing at the moment, maybe the three aspects of your coaching capacity and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, quite interesting trying to think of a place to start, really. I suppose for the last few years, I've been working in, well, I was going to say for the last few years, I'd probably say for the last sort of 7 or 8 years, I've been working in academy football at different levels, currently working at Reading Football Club as, well, I'm working in the early YDP, as we call it. So that's sort of looking at the 12s, 13s and 14s age groups. Also, I'm the academy manager over at Hungerford Town and Precision, looking after the 16s to 19s program over there. And then I also do performance coaching under the sort of name of my own company, Perform 2-3, where I work with professional and academy level footballers and sort of just give them a little bit of help towards improving their development over a period of time.
Perfect. So if we start with the, I guess, the academy role at Reading, etc. I guess the first question is, how did you fall into that? And then can you just describe what your maybe working week would look like?
Okay, so kind of fell into academy football. I stopped playing football quite early. I stopped playing football at 24, and made a really quick decision to go into coaching. I'd done a few badges during my time at university, so I'd got the level 1 and 2 out of the way. I'd done the youth awards 1 and 2 as well, and probably the week after I stopped playing, I was on my UEFA B. So I sort of got that qual. Was fortunate to be doing it over at Oxford City. I had a lot of help from what would go on to be the Oxford City first team manager, Mike Jones. He helped me out a lot, and sort of gave me a little bit of advice and gave me the opportunity to sort of work with the younger squads. And that all led into a role where I was sort of got the opportunity to go into the academy at Bristol City. I worked at Bristol City for just over 12 months, and then ended up over at Reading. So I got the role over at Reading, worked in the foundation phase for the first year. And then ever since then, I've been in sort of the YDP age groups, working with the young players there and sort of helping their transition into the PDP phase.
And in terms of what your working week would look like, working with those age groups?
Yeah, so working week at the moment is looking like, so the boys will do evenings and then they'll play on the weekend. So we'll train sort of once or twice in the evenings. If they're on day release, then they'll have a day release program also within the week. So we're probably looking at a Monday night session, a Wednesday night session. Thursdays would either be an evening session or a day release session, depending on what's available. Obviously, in current times at the moment, it's been a bit difficult to get the boys out of school. And then we'll have a game on a Sunday.
Perfect. So I guess the first question for me from listening to that, what do you think has led you to being really successful around this age group? So obviously you've mentioned you kind of worked across foundation phase and youth phase and that type of stuff. Yeah. But what do you think from a skill perspective leads you to being really good in those age groups that you currently work in?
I think the biggest thing, if upon my reflections, really, I think the biggest thing has been being able to relate to the boys and their sort of stages of development. I was once one of them in that position, and sort of being able to relate to how they're feeling when they arrive, sort of seeing signs of how the boys, what's essential basically for them in certain areas. So what do they need in terms of their development? Being able to go after certain things that as a young player I had to learn, being able to give them the opportunity to learn them as well, but also leaning on my experiences before. It's been quite a good way of bridging that gap. I see myself as somebody that the boys can relate to a little bit. As you can probably tell, I'm one of the younger coaches that we might have within the academy, and that probably means I'm a bit closer to their age group. And I suppose if I even go even deeper to myself personally, I'm a bit of a big kid. So the boys will be talking to me about FIFA and Ultimate Team and stuff like that. And I don't know if you can see it in the back, but I've got the PS5 sort of tuned in and ready. Do you know what I mean? So I'm able to talk to them about that sort of stuff, and we're able to sort of relate to each other on a level, but still at the same time, I'm able to draw back to those coaching perimeters as they were, and give the boys a little bit of what they need, but also a little bit of what they like as well.
And well, to get hold of a PS5, by the way.
Don't. That's for another story. That's for another time.
So in terms of, you mentioned there kind of drawing on your own experiences of being around the age group. So was there something in particular for you during those age groups that was particularly positive or particularly negative that has allowed you to utilize it now that you're working with those ages?
Yeah, I think growing up, I don't think as a sort of 9 to 11-year-old, I don't think I was particularly successful in my time at football. I still enjoyed it. I still played quite a decent level of grassroots. But sort of as I got a bit older and my body started to develop a little bit more, physically, I was able to do quite a lot in football. I was able to train up age groups and sort of play up age groups, and I was able to perform quite well in doing that. Obviously, they talk about the sort of experience you'll have away from your footballing setting as well. And I was quite fortunate to have older cousins who played football and were really keen at playing football, and I would be knocking around with them quite a lot. So that all sort of helped my development a little bit, and it led to me having some really good times in that sort of YDP age range. Being able to understand that, and then with the experiences coupled from sort of playing, it just gave me more of an insight into the different levels that come within that type of development, or that area, and the development for that area. So I'm fortunate to know what it's like to be a grassroots player at that age group, but I'm also really fortunate to know what it's like to be an academy player at that age. I've been able to see what Cat 1 players look like. I've been able to see what Cat 3 looks like. It's given me a really good gauge, and also the years that I've spent now coaching within it, it's given me a really good gauge as to how to develop different types of players, and sort of how to sort of have a look at a player and tailor their program to their individual needs as well.
Okay, so leaning on that tailoring bit, obviously the age group you're working with, you see a lot of maturation differences. So I think the 13s and 14s are the big ones, where you got some of them that look like me with a big bushy beard, and then others that still their voice hasn't broken yet. So how do you manage that in a group? So how do you manage those two different ends of maturation, and how do you, I guess, support if it's support, but also challenge if they need more challenge as well?
I mean, if I'm honest, that support doesn't come without the work of a good team, because as you will well know, the under 13s age group is an absolute minefield when it comes to keeping players on the pitch, sort of helping them with really growthy injuries. So previous times it's been Severs and Osgoods. This year, I think we're having quite a few hamstring injuries. And it's all to do with the fact that the boys' bodies are adapting and growing. And it's just making sure that you're able to tailor your program so that you can consider those elements. So maybe sometimes not sticking to the plan of intensity, but tailoring it to what you see, because quite often with certain boys, it can appear on the day. It's not necessarily a pattern of appearance in the under 13s, because every day is different as they grow and develop. So you'll get the really small ones who are able to fly through the year without many injuries or without picking up too many knocks. But then you'll get the really tall ones that are having to deal with balance and coordination issues. They're sort of going through a really big growthy stage where their bodies are getting longer and the coordination from head to toe becomes a little bit less efficient. And it's giving them the opportunity to then get to learn the ball again, get to master, get to pick up all those things that they've sort of developed from 9 to 12 that will help them again once they get to this stage as well.
So you mentioned around like looking at what you see on that day. So I guess we're talking mainly about the maturing players at that period of time, or high growth, etc. What type of red flags are you looking for, or what type of things are you looking for? Maybe not necessarily always on the pitch, but maybe sometimes what type of things are you looking at that might be a flag that actually I need to keep an eye on this boy today?
I think the first thing for me, and I'm quite fortunate because in the work that I do away in sort of the performance stuff, a lot of that is based on looking and seeing how a player moves. So the biomechanical side becomes quite important and quite crucial. So with a younger player, it's sort of looking at how they're moving. How are they trying to arrive on the ball? Are they able to give their all? Are they giving their all in terms of their effort when they're running forward or running back? When they strike the ball, are they sort of withholding a little bit? Do they strike through the ball clean, or do they sort of give a little bit less because they know it's going to be a painful one if they strike through it? I think sevens and Osgoods are quite easy to spot because the players will be in quite a bit of pain. And it's quite simple to sort of see when a player's not giving their all because they're trying to sort of hold back from that pain barrier. So from that point of view, predominantly I'm looking out for a loss of intensity within their movements, a lack of extension when they're sort of trying to strike through a ball, and when they make contact, and are they really giving their all in each moment? Those are the first sort of few things that I'm looking at before I sort of have a conversation with them about how they're feeling and sort of how they're moving and whether they think it's normal or whether they think they're capable of doing more.
So that conversation, that was going to be my next point. What is the conversation you're then having if you do see all or one of those three things you just discussed?
So the first conversation is just to ask the player how he feels. First and foremost, I'll be looking at, right, okay, how do you think that you're moving? Because they might not even notice that they're moving in a way where they're sort of protecting themselves and not giving their all. So it's sort of giving them the opportunity to describe how they feel. Do you feel okay? If you're any academy footballer in the world, that answer is going to be, yeah, I feel brilliant. Of course it is. Nobody wants to stop playing football. They love it just as much as we did when we were that young. So they want to be playing football all the time. But it's giving them that sort of understanding that if they continue to play through excruciating pain, so playing up to a certain level of pain, it will naturally help them. But they continue to play through excruciating pain, it's actually going to hold them back. So they'll have to stop playing for longer. So getting them to sort of understand, right, okay, I'm in a lot of pain now. I need to go and see the physio department, or I need to go and see the sports scientist and do some more exercises. Giving them that opportunity to sort of understand how to cope with it and how to deal with it in their day-to-day is probably where we go with that conversation. Sort of leading them to the right cues and giving them the opportunity to understand, right, okay, pain's at 7 out of 10 now. I need to make sure that I go and do everything I can to sort of get the pain levels down.
And how do you manage maybe like I'm not saying that, performance is really important at this age group, but how do you deal with a loss of performance, a loss of confidence? Because you mentioned a little bit around people maybe not being able to move as well as they had done previously, or struggling around the ball where they hadn't done previously, which are all, key signifiers. If you've got an individual who, is naturally a very good mover, can breeze past players and is good with the ball at his feet like a Zaha, then all of a sudden he can't run past anyone and he keeps tripping over the ball, that's going to have some, I imagine,
Yeah.
some negative impact on the player. So how do you go around framing it for them and helping them understand that, that this is part of their journey and that they will get through the other end?
I think initially, I think the biggest thing is to not make a big deal out of it. I think if you're 18, about to step into the first team, and it's an issue, then yeah, we're going to have to address it quite sharply. But if you're 13 and it's something that's been your strength up to this stage, and you're having a bit of a balance and coordination issue right now, the idea is to sort of address that issue without making it such a big deal. So I wouldn't necessarily hide it and not tell them, right, okay, well, this is going wrong. But at the same time, I wouldn't highlight it to them as, well, you were really good at that and you're not good at it now, so we need to work on it. For me, it's something that will come naturally if they're given that confidence and if you encourage them, because if there's a capacity to do it already, it's surely just 2 or 3 things that need tweaking in order to get it going again. So just giving the player a little bit more confidence, giving them a little bit more of a belief in themselves that they can get back to those levels.
And I guess, and this is a touchy subject, but around this time, teenagers can become teenagers, and I imagine you're gonna have some boys that are gonna be hormonal, just naturally part and parcel of it. So how do you deal with those ones? Because if you're more emotional, and then if, for example, the thing you were best at is playing football, and all of a sudden you're struggling with that can be a real challenging situation for them. So how do you deal with the emotional side of a player that might want to chuckle his toys out the pram because he's finding it really, really difficult?
Well, listen, I think that's where the big kid side comes up. I think when you deal with somebody whose confidence leads them, or lack of confidence leads them to take things to heart, I think it's important that, not that you mask it with humor, but if we're going to throw the toys up, because everybody's got the capacity to do it, let's throw them out together. Right, what's really important? What are we really going after? What do you want? And let's work towards that instead of working against it. So it's getting the players to sort of understand, right, okay, if you feel like we're in this problem and we're in this predicament and there's an element of your game that we need to work on, right, how are we going to work on it? Let's not waste time being frustrated because things aren't going in the right way. Let's be open and honest. Let's have the conversations that we need in order to go after the things that sort of you want to go after the things that are going to help you get to the next level. If you're in the 30s, the next step of progression is to go into the 40s and be a confident performer. So how are we going to get you from the under 13s at this mid stage that we're at now into the under 14s performing confidently in those elements that you right now are sort of highlighting as an area for development?
And have you seen anyone who's done that really well, where you've framed it like that and actually they've either assessed it themselves and said, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this, or gone, okay, yeah, I'm having a rough patch, but I know the context behind it. Have you got any like live examples of that?
Yeah, there have been players left, right, and centre in our environment. We've been fortunate that there have been some good players that have come through, and there are players currently right now playing in the first team doing really well. I think that the environment lends itself well to the players that give a lot back into it. So if you're able to have those conversations, if you're able to sort of step out and talk to certain players and talk to your coaches and, right, this is what I want, how can I get to there? And you're able to work towards it and have those conversations. I think that in particularly category 1 environments, it lends itself really well to supporting players and sort of helping them progress higher and kicking on. I'd say at Reading, I'd be here all day talking about the sort of the examples of players who have turned round and overcome different areas that they needed to develop in order to make it, and are now thriving.
Is there one, and you don't have to name the person, but is there one in particular that springs to mind in your experience?
Yeah. I know there's currently one guy who is playing in the first team at the moment. And I remember when I first worked with him, he had previously been released And in his mind, that was really detrimental to him. He had felt as though, right, well, I'm not going to be a footballer. What can I do? And in working with him and sort of speaking to him about his potential and getting him to believe where his development could kick on to, we did a lot of work over the summer. And the conversation that I sort of had with him was, if you get this right, you could go and play in the first team. And he sort of looked at me, looked a bit puzzled. First team, no. There's no way. I'm just finished my scholarship. I'm going into the first year of my pro. Like, I'm not going to go into the first year. I might be lucky if I train. No, if you get this right, you could go and play in the first team. Let's keep working on this. Let's keep going. Let's get this right, and then let's see where it takes us. I don't know who was watching me that day, but for some reason it worked. He went at it. He worked hard. He did the bits that he needed to do, and he got his opportunity. And he's done really well with it. He's been doing a lot, and he's ended up having a really good first half of the season. Hopefully that second half continues, but it's his belief in his own abilities that carry him that far. My words can only open a door, and then it's up to him to walk through that and sort of carry that on. It was great to be the person that got him to believe in himself, but it's been even better to see him and what he could do through dedicating himself, working hard, putting in the hours of practice that he needed to put in, and really giving his all. It's been brilliant to see.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the psychological limitations you people and players put on themselves, and is a big factor in performance sport. We'll get back to the practice side that you mentioned in a little while, because I think it ties into obviously your Perform 23 stuff, and I think it'd be really interesting to talk about some of the practices that you do. But just linking into the maturation stuff again. So if you've got maybe an early maturer who's out of growth and everything's going well with, and naturally because of their maturation, they're thriving in the group potentially.
Yeah.
Without playing them up an age group, which is obviously one way to do it, what tangible ways do you challenge them in your sessions? So if we're doing a 1v1 practice, or if you're doing phase of play or whatever it is, what tangible techniques do you actually use to try and really challenge that individual to work on different aspects of their game?
Yeah, I think that sometimes with early developers, they're really good at being able to utilize play to their advantage. And physically, under 13s, if you're physically dominant, you can have a really good time when you're playing and sort of when you're in and around certain areas. For me, I think that one of the best ways, and one of the ways that I've liked to do it, is sort of to even the playing field by making the pitches smaller sometimes. Putting the player in situations where they need to be more technically efficient, where you can eradicate some of the physicality. So if you're playing on a full-size pitch, for example, and you're doing 11v11, naturally that player is able to exert their physical dominance up and down the pitch. But if we're now on a small-sided pitch, 5v5 or even 3v3, and you've got players who can technically cope and deal with the ball up against them, and they're passing and moving the ball quicker than that player can run, it now means that they need to find a different way to win. And it's just putting that player in positions and in scenarios where they have to find a different way to win to what they're used to. For me, that helps them acquire all the skills that they need to, while still being that early mature.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of doing it, in terms of framing it like that. And linking it back to something you mentioned earlier, which was around that you played a lot with your cousins when you were growing up.
Yeah.
I'd imagine for you, if they were, depending if you were the oldest or the youngest.
Youngest, I was.
Say that again, sorry?
I was the youngest, yeah.
Okay, so you probably had it the other way, where you had to move the ball quickly before getting battered around.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine that's where a lot of that learning could also take place, kind of schoolyard football, back garden, down cages, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think in the school, and I mean, I had it when I was at my school. I can only speak from my sort of experiences. In in the school ground, when you play football, you don't play 11v11. You play year 7 versus year 8, or you play year 7 and year 8 versus year 9 and 10. And do you know what I mean? There could be 30 kids on one team. And if you're a talented footballer, you're dribbling through them all. You're trying to get from one end of the pitch to the other as quick as you can and score a goal. You haven't got time to think about whether you can physically dominate or what passes are on. You're trying to win the game and score a goal. You're navigating your way through an absolute minefield. That can only make you better if you're doing it every day. If you're passionate about it and you're doing it at the right intensity and you're doing it every day. I know we sort of say to players, look, be sensible about what you're doing. But those sort of environments, they bred a caliber of footballer that just thinks for themselves, is autonomous. Imagine if you're doing that daily, 5 times a week, lunchtime, 40 minutes a day, instead of dribbling around cones. The people that know your cones, you're dribbling around people. You're trying to beat them. You're trying the new skills that you've just learned in your training session in the evening. You're trying to bring them to life out on the school playground, where obviously dreams are made. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I think those environments, obviously, they are where a lot of this innovation is created.
And do you see a difference between those that do get exposure to that and to those that don't? So those that maybe have people on their street that they're able to play games with, or cousins or brothers or sisters or whoever, compared to those that have no ball game signs up around their estate, or those that live out in the middle of nowhere. Do you see a difference between those two types of players?
Yeah, I think the practice is the practice hours. Those who are repeatedly given an opportunity to practice and perform, and take it by training and performing at a really high intensity, those kids, they're monsters when they come to academy football. They dominate. They make good decisions. They think about all the possible scenarios or the possible outcomes in each scenario that they're in. They adapt to the environment really well, and stronger, more physical boys. I think there's a real home for that sort of stuff, and finding those hours. And it doesn't necessarily have to be structured. I think sometimes even the unstructured play helps a lot.
So I get this again links into your Perform at 23 stuff. So
yeah,
this is obviously more, I imagine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, more structured environment and your one-to-ones and all that type of stuff. But
sometimes.
Okay, you said sometimes. Why did you say sometimes?
So under the sort of Perform 23 umbrella, I would do and if we're talking from an academy level, there will be one-to-one sessions, there'll be small group sessions. But also I've been doing sort of performance camps during the holidays and half terms. So it's explicitly for players of a decent level. So players from different academies will travel down and they'll come and play and train for 4 hours a day. And we'll do a mixture of some structured stuff that, depending on the group and the cohort of players that we have, that's essential for their development. But then we'll also let them do the schoolyard football and put it on and let them play for 60 minutes in unstructured teams. So I'm talking no shape. Go on, boys, here's your teams. Come on, let's have a game. Let's see what goes on, and reward them for being innovative and exciting and playing in a hassle-free environment. And the boys love that element of it more because there's no pressure attached to it. I'm not there talking to them about, right, okay, well, you're going into the next phase next year, or your next contract you're performing towards your next contract. They're in an environment where they're meeting people who they play against on a Sunday. They're training with, and maybe some people who they train with. There are older boys, there are younger boys, and everybody has to just get on and get involved. Oldest players might be 16 and playing quite high level grassroots. Youngest players might be 12 and playing in a Cat 1 academy. And they've all got to find a way. They've all got to find ways to be successful. They've got to find ways to win. And the camp is designed around them having to find that way, as opposed to us structuring and manufacturing the environment for them to have that every time they go.
So I guess there's two questions for me off the back of that. The first one is,
Yeah.
do you see a difference between those academy boys in this environment to the academy environment that they're often in? I don't know if you've had any crossover with the Reading boys, but others that you might have come across during games and stuff. Do you see a difference between the two environments when they're there? And I guess the next question for me on this is, in terms of them being more creative in this environment, do you see that? Do you see them being more creative in this environment as well?
In terms of the crossover, definitely I see a difference in the boys. I think that naturally, with how relaxed the camp can be, you're going to relax, you're going to have fun, you're going to enjoy a lot more than you are when you put on your academy uniform and you go into that environment. You've got coaches in uniform and you're working towards a cause of a Sunday game, or you're working towards a cause of your next 2 years of development. Sometimes when you're there for the 2 hours, that can take over you and you can feel a little bit more pressure than perhaps you should. Whereas when you come to this camp's all about fun. It's about developing, it's about improving as an individual. It's about giving you and working towards those brilliant basics that you're going to need along your journey. But at the same time, it's about enjoying it. It's about showing people who you are without anybody being able to judge that. It's not an environment where we feed back and we sort of say, oh, so-and-so was like this for these 2 weeks, or they behaved this way. The boys own the camp, they run the camp, they police the camp, they govern what goes on in the camp. It's very much a camp for them, as opposed to a structured camp where we sort of go, you need this, so you're going to work on that. The group dictates, right, we want to do a bit of this today, so let's work on that, and then we're going to go in and we're going to have our game. Right, okay, when we have our game, this is what we're going to prioritize. So 1 week it might be we're going to prioritize aerial goals, so volleys, headers, bicycle kicks. It might be the next week we're going to prioritize skill moves, so nutmegs, flip-flaps, Maradonas. And it gives them the opportunity to try that. Now, seeing them go back into their environments, it's been great to see those players that I see in all of their different environments embrace that more creative side, embrace the risk-taking. But it comes as a result of being able to have that carefree environment to sort of go away and try new things in.
Do we create enough opportunity to do that? Because I know during half terms, a lot of clubs will go away or put on fixtures and stuff. And yeah, it's different to what they do in term time. But obviously, like you said, you're still putting on that badge, you're still putting on that uniform.
I think it's difficult. Obviously, sometimes I think it's difficult. When as a club would you allow your players to go and mix with different players from different environments, or when would you get the opportunity to? I think the biggest thing and why the camp's been so successful is it's organic. It's not, right, okay, I'm going to meet up with Reading boys and boys from Arsenal and boys from, I don't know, Southampton or Manchester United. We're all going to come down to one place and we're going to mix and things like that. The camp is just literally whoever turns up, turns up. You arrive, you're in, you get to know people, they turn into being part of the camp family, and you get the opportunity to go and play. It's become a really rich environment for belief in yourself and self-confidence, and the energy that the boys bring from that probably infuses them and gives them a little stride in their step when they go back into these environments. But I don't necessarily think an academy environment can be like that. I don't think it has the capacity to be like that, just purely because there's always an outcome. We're always after an outcome. And I think that, rightly or wrongly, I think that that's a good thing. I think you're always striving towards something in an academy, and that's a good thing. So I think that in sort of creating this camp and having it on, I think where I am with it at the moment, as I've sort of discovered, it has a value within this sort of environment because it just creates that break from it all. But then when you go back, you're sort of ready to go after the outcomes again.
Do you see them either sharing ideas with one another or stealing ideas from one another a lot? So if you've got a lad from Reading who then gets a lad from West Ham, do you hear those kind of informal conversations?
Yeah,
You go, well, what do you do there?
honestly, it's been good. I've seen boys sharing free kick techniques. Sort of, right, okay, what's your routine before you do a free kick? Right, okay, I'm going to try that. Oh, it's good. Yeah, but I do it like this. And sort of, it's a lot like what we do as coaches. Sort of when we go on our coaching courses, we get the opportunity sort of once the course is knocked on the head, we get the opportunity to sort of sit down around a coffee table or whatever, and sort of have conversations with each other and sort of, right, so how do you do this, or what ways have you been doing this? And it's similar for the boys. That's their opportunity. They get the opportunity to get the footballs out and, right, okay, well, I take my penalties in this way. Oh, have you seen the way Mbappe takes them? Or have you seen the way that so and so takes them? Right, well, this is how I'm going to take them now, and things like that. And they get that confidence, and it's so much of they get the fulfillment from each other, and they get that enjoyment, and they get energized by each other, by the bright ideas that come from within the group. And it just, for me, there's no more of an organic feeling than watching an under 15 player directly impact the way that this under 12 player is now going to move forward with how he embraces his development. You might see him and he might come across and not have the right attitude in one element. And it will mean so much more coming from an older member of the camp saying, no, hang on, this is important. Make sure you get this right, because in your environment, your coaches might be watching. And then they get the opportunity they go, oh, right, this is important. Okay, I'm going to stick with it then. I'm going to make sure that I give my all in that moment. It means so much more than me going, so, whoa, hold on, boys. Listen, that's important. You need to make sure you do it. They look at me and they go, oh, he's on at me. He's on at me. He's sort of saying to me that I wasn't doing well. Whereas when the 16s said it, no, it's important. He's done a lot in academy football. It's important. I'm going to follow him.
It's really cool. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's in cricket, there's something called the Bunbury Festival. So basically what they do there is I think they split the country into, I want to say 6 regions, could be wrong. And basically they I think at 16s or 18s, collect all the best players from the clubs within that region. And then they go away for a week and they play they train and then play some fixtures against one another. Crazy. And then you basically end up with a final the last day, which everyone watches. But it is similar in the fact that loads of different clubs come together. So if you imagine you'd have a London region, it would be like best players from Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, etc.
Right.
You'd have the same in the Southwest. You'd have Manchester.
Sounds unreal, doesn't it?
Which is a really good idea. I'd love to see if you could do that in football. But I think what you're talking around there is almost an unpressurized version of that. Because I'd imagine if the Premier League went, you know what, we're going to do that as an idea, that's great. But there'd probably be pressure in terms of who was taking the coaching, what was the outcome, all that. Where actually what you've got here is that environment, but that's happened where kids can decompress slightly, which is, it sounds like that's the beauty of it almost.
Well, yeah, I think all in all, it's a soccer camp. The fortunate part of it is the kids happen to be ridiculously talented. Do you know what I mean? And they're able to sort of show that, and they're able to embrace each other, and they're able to get on with one another and learn. And you might be having a really difficult time at your club, but you spend a week in on camp and that might all turn around because you've got the support, or somebody who doesn't necessarily see you, but is at the same club as you, now sort of sees you in this environment. So then when you go into the club, you've now got a face that you can say hello to. You've now got somebody who's looking out for you because they know, all right, he goes to the camps, he's doing really well, right? Let's get behind him, let's support him, let's see how he's getting on. And it just creates that brotherhood amongst the boys, which again can be really powerful stuff.
No, it's really nice. It sounds like a really good environment, good idea in terms of just being able to support them in a way that is beneficial to them. Moving away from this slightly, I guess, and I mentioned this to you before. I saw that recently you
Yeah,
got an award with the Football Blacklist stuff. So
yeah.
congratulations on that.
Oh
Um,
no, thank you very much.
so do you just want to talk through with people what the actual award was for and the work that they're trying to do, etc.?
Okay, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't get all of this right. I know that, for example, Leon Mann and Rodney Hines, they started the Football Blacklist a long, long time ago. And the idea was to sort of celebrate um, Black people who were doing a positive or giving positive input into the footballing environment and into the game from all aspects. So it's not just the playing and the coaching side, it's administration, there's management, there's players who are off the pitch, the work that they do off the pitch. There's a whole host of sort of awards that they give out and sort of celebrate people each year. I was fortunate this year to have been awarded as one of the Ugo Ehiogu Ones to Watch awards. So what that is for talented people, talented young Black people within the footballing industry who have sort of been making an impact within the game, or who they think have got potential to go and do some wonderful things. From my own perspective, it's been something that it's made my family really proud. Obviously, me myself personally, I'm really proud of it, and it's been something that having seen the people who have won the award before, having seen the people who won the award this year, it's really warmed my heart in terms of the work that I've been trying to do, and it's really nice to receive some form of, I guess, some form of praise for how you're doing. You never really know in this industry whether you're doing a good job unless somebody sort of tells you. So to have a panel of people tell me that I'm doing a good job and to be sort of honoured and rewarded in this way, it's been unbelievable. Been really, really happy with it.
No, it seems like a really good initiative, and as I said, congratulations on the award from the work that we've discussed over this podcast for the last 45-ish minutes. I think everyone agree with a worthy winner. I guess from my perspective, and for the time that you've been in coaching or in the game and stuff, the first question is: have you seen an improvement in this area in terms of, Black or ethnic people getting into football clubs and having good roles within football clubs and being a prominent voice?
I think that in the time that I've been in academy football, definitely there's been more of a focus on equality, more of a focus on diversifying coaching staff and staff within football clubs and trying to include people. I think that any initiatives that have that at the heart of what they're doing are so important. I think they help everybody. They give people more opportunity, and you feel more justified in being able and feel more confident that if you apply for a certain role, you're going to have a good chance of being able to at least show people what you can do, and be out there and be given the opportunity to sort of be counted. Go on.
No, and I was just going to say, and looking at things that maybe we could do better or could be done better to promote this type of stuff.
Conversations like this are so important. I think being willing to listen and to have conversations and to learn how to implement strategies and how to implement the opportunity for people to be included and for environments to be inclusive. I think that's got to be at the heart of it. I think we've got to continue to have those conversations. We've got to continue to try and evolve in that way and get better. I don't think to suddenly flick the switch on and go, right, okay, everybody's performing at 100%. I don't think that's possible. I don't think it would work. But to be able to develop over a period of time and get ourselves into a place where each environment can sort of look at each other and go, right, I think we're doing exactly what we can to make sure that the best people for each role have that opportunity to apply for each job. The best people are in the best jobs. And I think naturally that's what everybody would want. everybody wants, and I can't imagine sitting at the top of a coaching environment and not wanting the best people to be in each role that sort of I've got available in my organization. I'd want the best people. So if we can create an environment where the best people, and I'm not necessarily saying that all the best people are black people, I'm saying the best people, if we create an environment where everybody feels like they've got the opportunity to apply, everybody feels like they've got the opportunity to be seen and heard, then you're one step closer to being able to employ the best people for that role.
I think, well, it's from seeing what you've retweeted before, there was a quote from Chris Ramsey that I really liked, and a lot of what you're saying here kind of goes with what the thinking I have, which is around it's the equality of opportunity rather than outcome.
Yeah.
So it's actually providing people with equal opportunity to take part in the interviews or get into clubs, I think this is how I started. You might be different, but go and observe in sessions and having the opportunity to go and observe sessions. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, we could do with him on a part-time basis. So you're there one night a week, and all of a sudden you get your foot in the door and all that type of stuff. So how can people and clubs and whatnot be more proactive in the opportunity space?
I think it's for me, I think it's providing those opportunities. It's giving people the opportunity to get in front of you. So those who are hiring and those who are in charge of sort of the hiring and firing at football clubs, they've got to be accessible. People have got to be able to have the opportunity to display their competency. Whether that be I don't know, when you meet up to do your A license, being able to show and perform and I don't know, be assessed by different people within the football industry, or being able to meet up at different meetups, different networking events with academy managers or heads of coaching or recruitment teams from football clubs, where you can display, go in and, as you were saying, being given the opportunity to shadow coaches and go into environments and ask questions and learn a bit more about how they're doing things. And maybe, I don't know, if you get the opportunity, being able to take parts of sessions and show people that you have got the skills and the availability. I think that for me, that's all I've ever wanted. And you're right in saying from when I started, it came with me being willing to take the opportunity. When I went and applied for my role at Bristol City, I lived an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours away. I wasn't able to get an opportunity anywhere. They sort of said to me, why are you willing to come to us? I said, because you're willing to give me the opportunity. You're willing to give me the opportunity, so I'm willing to travel, and I'll do that 4 times a week because I'm going to become better. I'm going to get that opportunity. And I think it goes hand in hand. If you're able to find environments, and I don't necessarily think that all environments are forthcoming with opportunities. Sometimes you can get too busy, but it's opening yourself up and making your environment an environment which provides everybody with opportunity. People are accessible. Environments are accessible to be seen, and how you work is transferable to those people who are trying to come in and sort of understand a little bit more about how you do things or how they should do things moving forward, if they want to get in your environment or just in an environment. So giving people that access to the environment, to the systems, to the people within that environment, for me, I think that's what helps them do more, helps them feel like they're being given opportunities, and then gives them that energy to want to commit more.
I think it's really interesting you said around the being seen side, because I could imagine, and this goes all walks of life, but you don't know what you don't know. So, for me, I wouldn't know where to look if I wanted to go and get into the financial sector or into the business sector. I wouldn't even know where to start. So actually, my in the football thing was because, I played football a little bit, but I was fortunate enough to meet someone who was in the academy environment and got me through the door. How can we get it where more of those people in environments that aren't traditionally exposed to those types of people that I was fortunate enough to meet, get to meet them so that they can get those opportunities. And I guess, are you aware of any particular schemes that kind of really, really promote that?
Um, I think I think first and foremost, it's important that if we see it as important, that we start to filter that through to everyone, that everybody starts to see it as important to have those access to those people. There's a lot of talk that gets said about black managers within the EFL and the real shortage of them, and sort of what I hear and the emphasis is on being able to meet chair people in and around the EFL and be able to meet them and have access to them. That will give you the opportunity of getting a job. One thing that's not going to go away in football is being able to prove your competency through knowledge or knowing people. You've alluded to the fact that your opportunity came as a result of being able to meet someone. I'm certain that my opportunities have come through me being able to meet people and being able to show them what I'm good at, as opposed to organically writing a CV and then walking through the door. It's about really being able to have that access is so important. In terms of initiatives that are sort of providing people with access, I know the Premier League are now starting to do some wonderful things. There's something called the Coaches Index, which gives people the opportunity to sort of upload their qualifications and apply for jobs through the anonymity. I've got the word out. Of not having to release their name or sort of where they're from and what they do. I believe it just gives you the opportunity to just put forward your qualification and sort of your experiences from there on in, and then employers make their decision through that index of who to interview and things like that. There are of course a few Premier League schemes that help to improve the sort of equality and inclusion space. For me, I guess it's just driving those. I know that Kick It Out used to do a networking event, and I went to one back in 2016. And I met quite a few people who now, unfortunately, I love to talk to on quite a familiar basis. And back then, I was looking at them like, wow, this is daunting. How am I going to sit down and hold a 10-minute conversation with them? But being able to go and do that gave me the confidence and the platform to then, right, okay, well, I've already met you before. So now when I meet you, I've got something to talk about. So it's having more mixes like that, having more environments where these people are there, ready and willing to listen, and but also to give you a little bit of advice as well.
I would hope that after COVID, everyone would be absolutely foaming at the mouth to get out and about to those type of events. Because whereas I imagine some people previous are like, I've got no interest in going. I bet now, with everyone being locked down, they'd be really
it's
keen
important,
to do it.
isn't it? I think it's so important. Networking's at the heart of being able to embrace and learn more about people. If you can find a way and find a positive group to network with, I think you're only as strong as the group of people that you network with in this industry. And I think that if you can find a way to meet people, if you can find a way to put yourself out there and sort of be able to have conversations with people, then you've got a good chance of giving yourself that extra edge when it comes to going after roles that you're after, or being employed by certain people.
At the top end, do you think that in the coming years we will see some changes? So obviously, I know the example that everyone likes to use at the minute is Gerrard, Lampard, and Scholes, all those guys. Now, I'll be honest, I don't like Sol Campbell, and the reason I don't like Sol Campbell is because I'm a Tottenham fan and he went to Arsenal. so I don't buy into that one.
Dirty, didn't he?
Yeah, but do you think now, and at least from my perspective, you've got a lot more black players that have come through the system around that time. So people like Heskey, Ashley Cole, etc., who are in and around quite prominent roles. So do you think now, purely because, not purely, but because of the fact that there's more high-profile previous black players that are in the game that are now interested in it, they'll naturally begin to get some of those opportunities? And I'm sure someone like Ashley Cole, I think if he goes well at it and really dedicates himself, he'll do really well, because the knowledge that he'll have, particularly in defensive areas, will be outstanding.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think historically there's always been that stereotype surrounding the opportunities provided at that level. What I've found, particularly over the sort of last, I would say 18 months, is it's been unbelievable to see the amount of positive black role models in the coaching game that are doing really well and thriving. Well, I probably extend it to even longer. I remember watching Darren Moore, and so my family heritage is Jamaican. So to see Darren Moore as the first Jamaican coach to win a game at Old Trafford is something that sticks in my mind. I saw that, and it gave me more energy to buckle down and keep working towards my goals. To see Chris Powell standing arm in arm with Gareth Southgate at the Euro final and the journey that they went on, and to see him celebrating when they won in the semis in the way that he did, and to see his celebration when Luke Shaw scores in the final. These are memories I won't forget. And to see that caliber of person go on and do so well. And it's not just them. There are loads emerging and in and around that we won't be able to mention because I'll be here all day. But they're doing so well. And for me, as a young coach, trying to make sort of movements within the game, seeing them do well gives me that encouragement to keep going. So for me, it's only a matter of time. I see these talented young coaches like Marvin Bartley, who's doing really well up in Livingston, and seeing him, and if he gets the opportunity to go in management, it can only be positive for him. Seeing different coaches in 23s roles, if they get the opportunity to go into first team management or into first team coaching, then the natural progression is to then go into first team management. So they're getting closer, and they're proving that they've got the ability to do really well. So now that we're sort of seeing them do well with the opportunities that they're given, it's only right that they'll naturally be able to sort of take over and be able to take those management roles and do really well in them as well. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a really interesting case, and I guess one that to finish this up, how much of an effect do you think it can have with the players? So, I gave the example earlier around the not making eye contact thing. There's been other examples that I've heard of, players that have been tried to be coached in a specific way, and family have said, no, listen, we're a particular type of heritage. We're very command style at home. That's what he responds to. You do that, you'll get the best out of him. And that's what's happened. So I guess from my perspective, how much of an impact do you think having diversity of opinion or diversity of experience can have, one, in terms of supporting the children better? Because in player development, that's the ultimate goal. We want to develop them as best we can. But two, to try and educate one another better. So, we could sit in an office and I say, I'm struggling with this player, and you'll go, well, actually, I know this about his family, or from my experience with these type of families, equally, I'd be able to do the same from mine. And so how important is that diversity, and how much education support could take place in that environment?
I think embracing diversity and understanding it, I think it's one of the most important factors that go into the difference between a player making it and not making it, especially if they're from a diverse background. I think that players who feel like they're understood, who feel like they've got solid relationships and strong relationships, and that people understand them, will give more. I think they'll naturally give more to your environment. They'll push harder. They'll want to give more. They'll want to give you as much as they possibly can, because they know that you understand them, that you know what they're going through. I think one of the best examples I've had is we had a young player who was fasting, but still training, but coming in, and he was fasting, and he would break his fast in between training. Fortunately for myself, I'd had this player from a young age right the way up to the age that he was at the time. But he'd had different lead coaches the entire time through. So once we sort of got round to the period of time that he'd be fasting, I'd almost be right. Okay, well, it's time. Right, he's going to be fasting for this week. We're going to need to make sure that we adapt our sessions round him having that 15-minute break where he can go off, break his fast, eat, drink some water, relax a little bit, and then come back out and finish the session. And it wasn't difficult getting coaches to understand it. But if you've never experienced it before, if you've never had a player in your group that is fasting at the time, it can come as quite a bit of a shock. What, he's got to leave in 15 minutes and come back? Why? And where's he going? And why is he taking 15 minutes out? And sort of giving them the opportunity to understand that, but also keeping the player involved, so that the player, now you're at that age now where you need to manage that. You need to let your coach know, right, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'll need at this certain point. Can we have that? Is that okay if I do that? And giving the player that ownership of it. So then it becomes an environment where they're embracing it now as well. There's no embarrassment of, I need to leave the session 15 minutes and come back and everybody's going to feel like I'm different to them. It's, no, this is what I do. So I'm off to go and break my fast. I'll be back in 15 minutes. This is how I'm going to manage it moving forward. And having those conversations, I think, can be really empowering. But including the young person in that as well really helps, because then they feel like they've got people, they're working with people who understand them.
Listen, Rhys, really appreciate your time and hopefully can catch up with you again soon. Thanks for listening to the Sports Initiative podcast with me, Michael Wright. Please remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the Sports Initiative Podcast, and share this podcast with friends and family. I'll see you next week.